Good morning,
Okay.
There
or
we go. I think that's working now.
good afternoon, or whatever it is. Guess it's afternoon for Tristan.
Yes.
And I'm recording, if that's all right with everybody.
All right.
And anything that we should be talking about before we start our
Um,
conversation about the peeps? I did send Tristan a clarificatory email, make sure that I understood what we were talking about the experience of reading. I think I copied Amber about that on that email. And Tristan responded and said, basically, he had, he agreed with what my understanding was. I understood,
yeah.
which isn't surprising, but that's like to make sure I got things right. And
That's good to clarify.
so, anything else we should be talking about before we?
I'm ready to jump in.
I'm ready. Let's do it. Number one. This is day 6, maybe day 6.
Um, yeah, I suppose, yeah.
All right, number 1.
Um, so the components are that, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at a lamp on Amazon.com, and I was thinking that it was a nice lamp. I like the design. Um, I was wondering how much it cost. I was feeling like I had to poop and I had a stomach ache.
So by my count, there's like 4 things going on here. As a matter of fact of the universe, I'm looking at the ad, and the things that are in my experience are something like it's a nice design and how much it costs, and I have to poop and stomach ache.
Yeah.
And is any of those more prominent than?
Um, the thinking about the lamp's design. Oh, there might be yeah, as part of that, I like that it was gold. Um, Actually, maybe that's part of the same thing as liking the lamp, but I like that it was gold.
Okay. And is that the most prominent part of your experience?
Yeah, that's the most prominent.
By a lot, or by just edging out some of the other ones?
Mm, so I'd say the bodily stuff is like maybe 10 to 20
Each or total?
total. The how much it cost is 20, and the rest is just thinking about liking the lamp.
So that's like the bulk of it is thinking about the lamp, 60-ish or something like that.
Yeah,
60, 77. So let's start there. So I like the lamp. I like the design of the lamp. I like its gold.
yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that there were no words attached to this. This is just wordless thought.
And by wordless thought, do you mean that you understand this as a cognizing about? I understand myself to be cognizing that I like this, that's a nice design, or am I attracted to the nice design and the goldness? And that's not necessarily cognitive, but sensory
Interesting.
attraction.
I would say it was cognitive.
Both the gold and the design.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that I'm attracted to the gold, but that I think I analyze the gold to be pleasant or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that it's gold instead of Well, just say I like that it was gold, but I like the design, sort of mid-century modern. Um, yeah, so I would say it's a cognitive process without words attached to it.
Okay. And by process, do you mean experience, directly experienced? I experience myself to be cognizing about. Not that I theorize myself, well, I must be cognizing because I'm distinguishing this between that, this and that, or whatever. That would be sort of a theoretical view of my processes. The question is whether that's what I'm saying when I mean when I say process, or whether I am experiencing myself as analytically or cognitively or
I experience it.
okay. And so I like the design. That's a good design, a pleasant design, but that's a thinking thing. I think it's a good design, not I'm just attracted to the design. And I am satisfied, analytically satisfied that it's gold, or I like that it's gold, or
Mm.
and are those separate deals, or is it that I am somehow cognizing that the lamp is good, pleasant, whatever, and when you ask me to tell you about it, well, it's that the design is good, the color is good.
I'd say they're the same thing.
So I am cognitively apprehending the desirable qualities of the lamp,
Yeah, that's good.
and when I articulate the details of that, it's design and color, gold color, and
Mm.
maybe some other stuff too, but that's sort of primarily it. But
Yeah.
this, I'm thinking about the visual features, I guess you would say, of the lamp.
Mhm.
And and this is a positive thing. I I like them, approve of them, in favor of them. Is that right?
Yeah.
But my experience is more of a cognitive thing rather than an effectively drawn to or a sensory drawn to.
Um,
I'm not trying to tuck you into that. I'm
yes.
just trying to.
Yes, it's more of a cognitive thing.
Okay. Then I think I'm happy with that portion.
Yep, me too.
And then there is some wondering about how much it costs.
Yes.
And that, well, you tell me how does that come to you? How do you apprehend that?
Um, it's coming to me because there's a lack of the visual element of the cost on screen, and I feel like I need to know how much it costs.
So the first part of that sounded sort of like an explanation. This is why I'm thinking about that.
Yes.
And is that present to you at the moment, or is it just I am wondering how much it costs, and when Russ asks me about it, I'm telling him, well, this is why.
I think it's the second.
Okay. And the how much does it cost is cognizing about. I experience myself as wondering what's this cost?
Yes.
And are there words involved?
No.
Okay. And is this, so we've got two things that we have sort of bluntly called cognizing here. One is the appealing design color of the lamp, and the other is how much it cost.
Hmm.
Are those the same kind of cognizing, or are those that were two different kinds of experiences that we're using the same word for?
They're the same kind of cognizing.
So I have a cognitive, analytical, experiential wondering, and a cognitive, experiential, analytical appraisal of the desirable colors and shape.
Yeah.
And those seem like sort of the same thing to me.
Right.
Okay. But separate.
Separate. Yeah.
simultaneous simultaneous processes that seem similar.
Right.
Okay. Any questions about that, Amber? And then there is I have to poop. And
Yeah.
is that directly present to me at this moment?
Yes.
In what way?
Bodily sensation that I'm feeling like that's my bodily sensation.
And bodily interior sensation, bodily anal sensation at what kind of a bodily sensation we're talking about?
Well, I would say interior.
So it's not like I'm holding it back. It's like I am feeling a pressure or something of the.
Well, let's say it's just difficult for me to describe whether it's internal or external, and it's actually probably a bit of both.
Okay. And located.
Anus and colon, I guess.
Okay. So
Sphincter.
lower than the stomach
Yeah.
in the tract. Okay.
Yeah.
And is this a sensory thing? I sensate this.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not the same then as the appraisal of the color, which I gathered was not primarily sensual, but mostly cognitive. This
Yeah.
is mostly sensual and not much or at all cognitive. Is that right? I'm not trying to talk you into that. So this could be, I'm thinking kind of a deal. I have to poop.
No, no, this is almost exclusively sensory.
Okay. And then there is the stomach ache.
Hmm. And
And,
that's also sensory as well.
and what does that feel like?
That feels like um, I would say it's an interior pain in the stomach.
Okay. And is that separate from, related to the same thing as the I have to poop?
Yeah, separate.
Entirely separate?
Hmm.
This is one sensation, that's another sensation. They're both bodily, they're both sort of in my thorax, but not the same thing.
Yeah.
And do they seem like I asked about the first two, and you said they seem like the same process, even though the content was different. One was color, and the other was price. Now I want to ask the same thing: is this? These are both sensations, and one of them is stomachy, and the other is anusy.
Yeah, I mean, there's similar process happening, different parts of the body, separate.
But you experience them as being more or less the same realm of
Yeah.
same kind of same type of sensation. That's a question. Okay. Then I think I'm good unless Amber's got additional question.
No, I think I'm good as well.
All right, let's go on to number two.
Okay, beep two.
Right. So in beep two, I'm thinking about the word gold. So the word gold is present to me. Um, and I'm feeling anxiety over finding the correct word and, and over figuring out whether I was thinking in words or not. So this is, as a matter of fact, this sample was taken while I'm trying to write up the previous sample.
Okay. And is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, so I hear there's a couple of things going on here. Is there anything that's more salient in your experience, or are they both about the same?
I would give them equal weight.
Equal? Okay. So I'd like to start with the gold
Hmm.
part. How is that present in your experience?
Well, I would say that I'm thinking about the word, so I'm cognizing about the word gold and it's present to me, but there's nothing especially speech-like or hearing-like about it. I'm just thinking about the word.
Okay. And that word, I hear I'm thinking about the word, but is that word there?
Yeah, the word is there somehow. The word gold is there.
Okay. So, and by cognizing, this sounds
So before we go down that road, can I ask a
okay.
more basic question?
Sure.
So is this, am I thinking about the word or am I thinking the word? So the question is in my experience just gold? I'm thinking the word gold somehow, or am I somehow thinking about the word, whether it's a noun or whether it's the right word or whether it's so am I thinking the word or am I thinking about the word? Or doesn't that question make sense?
Uh, I would say both.
Okay. And my question is experiential.
Hmm.
So then I'm not asking about what you I'm not asking you to speculate about the process that leads to why I would be thinking about this or whatever. I'm just about what is directly apprehended.
Yeah, it's both because I'm thinking the word, but I'm also thinking about the word.
Okay. And is one of those more salient to you, the word or the about the word, or are those wrapped up in the same deal?
They're wrapped up in the same thing.
Okay. Then Amber, I'm happy to have you continue on there. You're muted.
So I wanted to get a sense of how the thinking about the word process is present to you at the moment of the beep.
Um, it's present to me because it's wrapped up in my it's present to me because it's somehow related to the anxiety I'm feeling at that moment.
Hmm. Okay. So I guess the word because is a little problematic for me. I'm trying to figure out, so is this thinking about the word tied into the word and the anxiety, or is it somehow, or is that, I guess I'm trying to make sure that that's not like a theory about
Yeah.
anxiety or
Right, right,
how
right.
that's present.
Not making it a theory. I would say I'm thinking about the word gold, um, and I'm also feeling this anxiety, and I wouldn't necessarily say I'm feeling anxiety about this word. So these things are a little separate to me still. I just know that I'm thinking about gold and I'm feeling this anxiety.
Okay. So if I understand that correctly, all of this is about the same thing, but the experience, like contextually, it's all about the same thing, but experientially, these are separate processes. Am I getting that right? The thinking about anxiety and the anxiety and sorry, the thinking about gold and the feeling anxiety.
Hmm. Um, um, I'm not sure it's about the same thing, but I just know that they're closely related.
Okay.
So can I ask another clarification question
Uh,
before we get too far down here? So when I say I'm thinking about the word gold, does that mean I am trying to decide whether gold is the right word? I could use brassy, or I could use lustrous, or I could use not silver, or whatever. So this is just a word choice deal. Or is it I am trying to get this right? I want, I, in which case it's more about Tristan, I guess. Tristan wants to be right, or is it the word aptness? So I guess my question is, am I aiming at the word, or am I aiming at Tristan wanting the word to be right?
um, well, I would say that if you go forward or backwards in my sample, I may have been thinking something more specific about the word gold. But where we are at right before the beep, I just know that I'm thinking the word, I'm thinking about it, and I have this sort of general anxiety related to finding the right words, but not necessarily related to it's not I'm not specifically anxious about the word gold, but I have this anxiety about finding the correct words.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does
It
that
does.
answer?
It does. Thanks.
Okay. I think I've got the thinking part. I don't have any more questions about the thinking part. Um,
So let me see whether I understand that then. So is my experience, I am thinking the word gold. So there's not too much question here that the word gold is present to me, not spoken, not heard, but nonetheless, before the footlights of my conscious, gold is present. And it is a matter of, my understanding is that I'm trying to find the right word. But I'm not analyzing myself as trying to find the right word. What I am is feeling somewhat anxious about finding the right word. Okay? That's the way I understood it.
okay. Um, and I know we said that on the outset. We said we said the word gold, then thinking about the word, and then feeling anxiety. I just want to make sure that we've now all understood that the feeling anxiety is this trying to find the right word thing, or is it separate than that?
Oh yeah, that's the same thing. It's I'm
Okay,
feeling this anxiety over trying to find the right word and trying to determine if in the previous sample I was thinking in words or not.
okay. And this sounds like a emotional affective thing.
I would say it's both emotional, affective, as well as part of a mental process.
And by mental process, that sounds like kind of like a,
Maybe I'm overcomplicating. Maybe let's just say it's emotional, affective. Um,
well, if it's somehow both, I'd like to know about that. I want to make sure I'm understanding fully, right?
yeah.
We could call a mental or a cognizing process, um, you know, emotional and cognitive or whatever. I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding how this is going for you and how it's present.
Okay, then maybe maybe it's both.
Okay.
I'd say it's both.
Um, and So I take it that I want to start with the emotion side because I don't think we talked about that enough. How is that present in your experience, this emotional anxiety?
Um, I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay. I mean, like, is I, this sounds to me, by the way we've been talking about it, that this is not a bodily deal. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Um,
So I would say I haven't heard that. So could be
well,
or might not, could or be or not
we
be
have been
Yeah.
suitable.
talking about that distinction in the past. Um, and I'm still a little unsure about whether it's bodily or not.
Okay. So at the moment of this beep, we can't really say whether the anxiety is bodily or not bodily.
Well, I'm just unsure how to do it without delving into theories over what anxiety is for me. It's
Okay.
theorizing.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, can I help? Can I help about that? So if there is a bodily sensation involved at the moment of the beep, then
Right.
that would be fair game. Then we could theorize, I suppose, about whether that bodily sensation was a part of the anxiety or not. That would be a different story. But I think it would be possible to be saying I'm feeling anxious, and at the same time I am feeling something bodily. My heart is racing, my stomach is nodding, my hands are sweaty, whatever. All those things could be there in my experience, or they might. None of those things could be there. In which case, I would say, well, this did not directly appear to me to be bodily. So it's not theoretic. It's, from my point of view, it's trying to describe experience without theory.
Right. I would say that if it's bodily, it's not localizable. Um, but yeah, I would say it's not especially bodily.
Okay. So the non-localizable, like localizable to me seems like, well, that could be theory. My theory of anxiety says that if I got anxiety, it's got to be bodily. Or it could be that there's something that seems bodily, but it's so diffuse that I can't nail any aspect of it. Or I'm not too sure about any of that.
I would say that's it. I would say it seems bodily, but it's too diffuse to define in terms of any specific bodily part.
Okay. And not and able to diffuse and able to define at all in my head, in my chest, in my not in my arms, in my feet, not in my feet. Can't say. It's just there's some tincture of bodily something it seems, but I can't say where.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I put a drop of food coloring into the bathtub, the water turns pink, and I can't say where it's pink, but it seems like it's sort of pink. Is that the
Yeah.
metaphorically what we're talking about here? Okay.
Okay. Um, Now I just would like to dive a little bit into the cognitive side of this portion.
Mhm.
So how is that present in your experience?
Is that uh, I'm trying to figure something out. So I'm actively working on figuring this out. So as well as there being an anxiety, I'm also playing, I'm I'm trying to work through a cognitive process, basically.
So I'm trying to work through I'm trying to work through the cognitive process of
I'm trying to
finding.
find if I was thinking in words or not, or if I was writing the correct word.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like I'm a little confused because it sounds like that's what we had described earlier, kind of.
Right.
So is that separate?
From
Different?
the anxiety. Um,
Uh, like earlier we had talked about I'm trying to find like this process of trying to find the right word.
mm.
And is this the same thing as that portion of experience, or is this separate?
Oh,
Like,
no, no, that's the same thing as before, I guess.
okay. And I'm not trying to talk you into that. I just want to make sure that I got that correctly.
Right, right.
Okay. So trying to find the right word and is there a word present or something?
Yeah,
And that is not in words.
right,
But when we to describe it, those are the words I'd put to it.
right, right.
Okay. Okay. So let me make sure I've got this correctly. So at the moment of the beep, the word gold is present to me. Not spoken, not heard, but it's there. And I'm feel there's this anxiety thing. It's emotional and cognitive. The emotional part seems bodily but diffuse throughout the body. Can't really say where it is. And I'm tr and tied to that, correct, is this trying to find the right word. Is there a word there process going on?
Yep,
Did I get that all correctly?
that's right.
Oh, okay. And is there anything else in your experience at this moment?
That's it.
That's it? Okay.
I'm good.
Me too.
Number 3.
Quickly, Um, um, so the phrase shows how is present to me because I'm reading it. Um, I'm feeling anxiety over thinking about how much I have to read. Um, and I'm conscious of myself flipping between different pages of my book.
So 3 things present to you in your experience.
Mm-hmm.
The words show how, the phrase shows how, feeling anxiety, and the flipping of the pages.
Right.
So the flipping of the pages is not merely context, that's experiential.
Yeah.
And of those three, is one of them more prominent?
Equal.
Okay. Well, let's do them in the order then that we talked about them. So the phrase shows how is present to me. Am I reading with comprehension? And I guess I mean that both in a process way. Is it a fact of the universe that I'm reading with comprehension? And also experiential? Do I understand, feel
Um,
myself to understand what I'm reading at the moment?
yes, as a fact, I'm reading with comprehension. Shows how is the last thing I've read, so it's not like something that's stuck to me as I've continued reading. That just happens to be the last thing I've read. Um,
So this is not a latches onto shows how. This is last words that I've read shows how.
yes.
Okay. So in the drawing that I sent you yesterday, this would be a type 1 experience.
Yeah, it's my type 1.
Okay. So if I were to put that into English, I would say something like, I'm reading with comprehension, and the beep comes as I read the word shows how, which is the last thing, and that interrupts my reading. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I am feeling anxiety. And what is that? How does that present itself?
The anxiety is involved in a cognition of this thinking of how much I have to read and understand. That's how I would put it into words, but I wasn't necessarily thinking with those words. And there's also something diffusely bodily about it.
And the cognitive portion, how much I have to read, whether or not that's in words, is that present to me as part of this anxiety?
Yes.
So the analytic, there's got to be a better word, but I don't know what it is, cognitive analytic portion of this is present to me as part of the anxiety.
Yes.
Okay. And then there is a diffuse bodily. And by diffuse bodily, do we mean it seems like there's something bodily, but I can't pin it down to any particular part of my body, and yet it also doesn't seem like it's not bodily?
Yes.
Okay. And so does that make it the same diffuse bodily as in the previous beep, or what word do you select?
Yeah.
So the anxiety seems somehow bodily, even though I can't say what portion of my body it's in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, so I'm happy with that portion. Amber's got more about that. Then I'm flipping pages. And what's that? What about that is in my experience?
Well, I would say I'm doing it, and as a matter of fact, and I'm also aware of myself doing it cognitively.
And I guess I want to know what aware of myself cognitively means. So does that mean that there's a part of me that is in a cognitive analytical way noticing that Tristan is flipping pages, recognizing that Tristan is flipping pages? So it's not just I'm flipping pages, but I am somehow cognizing, noticing, recognizing the flipping.
Well, that makes it sound maybe a little more passive than it is. I'm I guess it's I I'm flipping pages and um or maybe how would I phrase it differently? Is I'm flipping pages with a purpose and I'm noticing it experientially. I'm just, that's part of my experience.
So it's not merely about the pages being flipped. It's about the reason for or the task of or the analysis of the reason being, I guess, is somehow present to me. I'm flipping these pages
Right.
for something, and that for
Yeah.
something is present to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I am reading at the same time as I am flipping.
Yeah. I'm reading on one of the pages that I've flipped back to.
So does that mean that the actual mechanical flipping of the page is just past? Or does it still seem so the experiential world does not have to match up with the physical world. So it could be that in the physical world the page has flipped back and now I am reading that page. In the experiential world, it's possible that I still experience myself as doing the flipping, even though in the physical world I have, it would be more accurate to say, has flipped.
I would say I probably flipped like just a fraction amount of time beforehand, and I had my fingers between two different sections, so I still had my thumb and finger in. They were not adjacent pages, let's say. They were quite a few
A few
pages
pages
in.
apart. So I've flipped this sheaf of pages back and I'm now reading, but I'm still holding on to the pages. So it still makes sense to say I'm flipping back and forth,
Right.
even though at the moment of the beep the pages are stopped, but I'm holding on to the batch of pages that I have flipped.
Right.
Okay. And does the flipping and the anxiety seem like they're related to each other, or is they seem like sort of separate things? I'm flipping and reading and feeling anxious as three separate processes.
Let's say they're three separate things that are
Okay.
interrelated.
And in the real world, they're no doubt related in some procedural way. I got a lot to read. I'm flipping back and forth. Or should we read this or whatever? But as far as my experience is concerned, they seem like sort of three separable deals.
Yeah.
And does the flipping seem like a mechanical thing? I feel my hands, fingers, whatever doing the flipping, or does this seem like a conceptual, I'm going to a different section of the book?
Mm, I would say both.
And bodily, what fingers, arms, eyes, hands, not possible to say.
Hands and fingers, I guess.
Okay. So this is not so diffuse. This is a bodily sensation of flipping in my hands and fingers.
Yeah.
And I want want to make sure that we haven't let the self-theory into here. The self-theory would be something like, well, I'm flipping the pages, I'm doing it with my hands, therefore I must be paying attention to my hands. I'd rather us not do that. I'd rather have us say, well, that was not part of my experience. I was flipping the pages, of course. My hands were doing it, of course, but my experience is not of my hands. It's of the pages being flipped, or the jumping around. Actually, it's more about jumping around in the book.
Um,
And if it's not possible, it's not possible. So I'm perfectly capable of asking questions that are not possible to answer.
yeah, let's leave that aside. It seems to me that there's an awareness of the whole apparatus there, but it's not quite possible to tease apart.
Okay. Then I think I'm good.
Me as well.
Number 4.
Okay. So I'm coming across the word resoluteness, and it's present to me. It's more like panel 1, where it's the last thing I read, as you sent me. I'm anxious because this is sort of what my thinking is, but it's not in these exact words, but it's because what I'm reading seems useless, or because I could get it's not worth the effort I'm putting into it. And then I am also conscious of my anus because it feels cold and wet.
Okay. So I want to make sure I got this correctly. Do I hear like 3 things or are these 4 things?
3,
3. Okay.
the word,
The
the
anxious.
anxiety, which is cognitive and diffusely bodily, same
Okay.
as the last samples. And then the last is the bodily sensation.
Okay. And are these all present in terms of salience? Are these all present the same amount?
The first 2, the word and the anxiety are more present. The
Okay.
last one is like a 20 or 15 or something.
Okay, so the last one is like, so if you say 20, then the others would be like 40, 40?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Oops. Sorry. Okay. So let's start with the resoluteness. Resoluteness?
Uh-huh.
Is that the word? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I hear I haven't, can't remember what the phrase we're using. I haven't like taken that out, or it's not stuck with me somehow. It just happens, the beep happens to come at that word.
Yeah.
Okay. So like had it come a second after, it would have been, I don't know, it would have been something else, and then it had it come before, it could have been a different word or a different set of words. But right now the beep happens to come at resoluteness.
Right.
And as a fact of the universe, I'm reading with comprehension. Is that right?
Um, um, that's a little hard to say.
Okay.
I can't say at this
Okay.
moment.
Is that because somehow the reading is part of my experience, or is it
Well, I'm attempting to read with comprehension, but sometimes this is just speaking more broadly. Sometimes I have to reread.
okay?
I get too distracted with other thoughts.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so let me clarify my question. What I'm trying to get a sense of is I understand that I am in fact reading. Is anything about reading present in my experience at the moment of the beat? Or is it that the word resoluteness is just present there and it's present there because I am reading?
um, I wouldn't say the fact that I'm reading is not present, but the what's really most prominent is this word resoluteness.
Okay. And how is that word present to you?
Um, Not especially spoken or heard, but seen and seen and present in a way.
And by seeing, does that mean like I see the word outwardly or I see the word inwardly or something else?
I'm outwardly seeing the word and also the word as apparent in my comprehension,
And how is it
my
apparent?
cognition. Um, it just is.
So somehow the word is, I'm seeing the word and I'm also somehow, something's going on internally, I guess, with the word. And I think I heard you saying earlier, this is not especially spoken. Does that mean that it is?
No, no, there's not really a spoken or heard quality to it.
Okay, so the word is just there, not spoken or heard.
Right.
Okay, okay. I think, do you have any more questions about that?
I do. So is my experience of reading and the last word read is resoluteness, or is my experience of the word resoluteness, and as a matter of fact, it's the last word read? And the reason that I'm asking that is that you have referred to this pretty consistently as saying this aspect of my experience is the word resoluteness, as opposed to I'm reading a sentence that's about the resoluteness of the Trump administration or something. And
Um, yeah, I think it's my experiences I'm reading, and the word resoluteness is especially prominent.
okay. So in the picture that I sent you yesterday, this seems like sort of halfway in between. It's not like I experience myself as latching onto this word and then latching onto this word and then latching onto that other word, saltatory word latchings. And yet it seems like I have somehow particularized this word, which happens to be the last one.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we have the anxious anxiety, that feeling. Um, in on the outset, I heard there's a diffuse bodily piece, right? Like it's bodily, but I can't say where kind of throughout.
Mm.
And I also heard that there's this cognitive piece of what I'm reading seems not worth it, or I can't get it, or something like that.
Yeah, that's I would say there's both a diffuse bodiliness to the anxiety, which is less present, but what is more present is the this cognitive process. So
Okay.
it's both an anxiety and a cognitive thinking as well. But I guess when I wrote it down, I start with the anxiety because it's very anxious thinking.
Okay. So I'm anxiously thinking about what I'm reading is whatever.
Yeah,
And how is that present in your experience?
that is present without necessarily words attached, although there are specific thoughts, like I'm thinking, for example, yeah, it's hard to locate at the exact moment of the beep what exactly it was that I was thinking, but there were yeah, but there were things I was thinking about, like
And by things you were thinking about, is it like just what I'm reading? Like maybe it's not specifically the thought is what I'm reading feels not worth it, but it's somehow there is this thought process happening about what I'm reading.
yeah, there is
Okay.
a thought process happening about what I'm reading.
Which it sounds like it could be characterized as being critical or something.
Yeah,
This reading is worthless. It's not worth the effort, whatever.
yeah.
And do those aspects seem like they're both present at the same time, or is it like first one and then another, and they happen so fast I can't tell the difference, or does it seem like these are swirling around cognitions?
Well, I feel like this would force me to make a theory that goes beyond the exact moment of the beep, but I would say that these various thoughts that I'm reading the wrong thing, that it seems useless, that I could get more from cognitive science reading rather than phenomenology. I would say that they're all separable in some way. These are thoughts that are separable that are occurring over the course of my thinking about this thing. But if when you stop me just at the moment of the beep, I can just say that I have this anxiety. I was thinking something related to all this. Can't say exactly what.
And does the thinking seem like the prominent aspect here? Like I'm thinking these critical thoughts,
Mm,
which may or may not be entirely separable, and are not in words particularly.
mm.
And so does it seem like I'm 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 in the midst of this thinking stuff,
Mm.
and I'm going to call that anxiety, or does it seem like I'm feeling anxious, and when I have to tell you what this anxious is, it seems like it's sort of thinking stuff.
It's more the first. I'm in the midst of this thinking stuff and feeling anxious about it.
Okay. And then when I think about telling you about the anxious stuff, then I could say, well, it seems like there's some diffuse bodily stuff as well. But that seems like rather distantly secondary to the thinking about the critical nature of this reading stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So that makes what we're calling anxiety here more a cognitive process than an affective process. Is that right? Or an indeterminately cognitive part ends up being anxiety, or multiple undefined.
I think it's both. There's definitely an affective part as well.
That is beyond just the swirl or presentation of these thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now the cold, wet anus piece, the bottom. Could you tell me how that's present in your experience?
Sure. Well, as a matter of fact, I am on the toilet, and I would say that this is a bodily sensation I am feeling at that moment. Less interior, more exterior, and or on the skin rather, epidermal. Um, and and yes, that's all I got.
Okay. Okay. Um, I think I don't know. Dr. Hilbert, do you have any more questions
I
about
think
that?
that's good.
Yeah, I think so.
And I am noticing that we are at our hour. And
Excellent.
so shall we do this again?
Sure. In that case, I will see you then.
All right. Sounds good to me. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.